攻击突然变慢了，这是你当真想替他们报仇？你本可成为不依附他族的强，真是无可救药。他怎么丝毫不？怎么可能？往出心乱流营下，只能靠实力强他们逃得掉。成功击出破了，他怎么追来了？杀了1名蜂王初等不朽神，厉害啊！击伤了你众领，一个界主怎么可能这么强？今酬劳，定当给力。
Hello everyone, welcome to the Alrasta channel. Here, I will share spoilers for SwallowedStar episode 186. Remember, this is based on the novel, so it won't be 100% similar to the Donghua version. Okay, without further ado, let's dive right into the story. In the previous episode, Luo Feng finally approached the source of the mysterious call that had guided him this far. The distance, which had initially been 1 billion kilometers, slowly shrank to 300 million kilometers, bringing him closer to the lurking danger. Babata quickly detected the presence of enemies hiding inside an ice mountain cave. Fortunately, their scanning technology was superior to that of their opponents, giving Luo Feng the tactical advantage he desperately needed. Through the hologram screen, he observed 3 warriors from the Nashi race, a powerful and rare foreign race in this galaxy. Their leader, a young man in black armor, appeared confident despite only possessing the strength of a low-tier immortal king. However, in the conversation intercepted by Luo Feng, he deliberately misled them by claiming to have the strength of a peak-tier immortal king and even threatened to summon other immortal king allies to aid in the battle. What complicates the situation is that the treasure Luo Feng is seeking is in the possession of the leader of the Nashi race group. To obtain it, he must defeat the 3 immortals in front of him, though his chances of victory are only 10%, even if he uses all his strength. As Luo Feng continued to approach, his enemies noticed the presence of an advanced scanner monitoring them. Cunningly, the leader of the Nashi race used a mini-scanner to detect Luo Feng's location, and then launched a psychological strategy by growing a giant spiked flower stretching 100 kilometers wide, while threatening that peak-level immortal kings would soon arrive to assist. However, Luo Feng, who was experienced in space, was not easily deceived. He realized that this was merely a bluff. A true peak-level immortal king would not act defensively like that, and summoning imperial allies was not as easy as claimed. With calm composure, he ordered Babata to shut down the large scanner and prepare to launch a spectacular counterattack against the Nashi race that dared to block his path to the treasure Luo Feng desired. Luo Feng slyly turned off his large scanner and began sneaking closer to the enemy, causing the leader of the Nashi race to become anxious because he could no longer detect his presence. Meanwhile, Luo Feng took the opportunity to contact his friend Ku Tuo to confirm the affiliation of his enemies. It turned out that the Nashi race was indeed part of the demon race, which meant that they were enemies and had no connection with the robot race that was currently hunting him. This information was very advantageous because Luo Feng could now use his secret weapon without worry, the insect army led by his soul slave named Alina. 1,000,000 armored tiger insect kings emerged from their nests, each controlling a deadly energy ball at the tip of their claws. Though a single shot meant nothing to an immortal warrior, 1,000,000 combined attacks could bring down even a peak immortal king. With perfect coordination between Luo Feng and Alina, millions of energy light balls streaked across the sky like a terrifying meteor shower, all heading toward the single point where the leader of the Nashi race was hiding. Though the enemy's giant flower, which had spread out over 100,000 kilometers, tried to detect the attack, the distance was too close and the reaction time too short. A massive explosion obliterated all the flowers in an instant, piercing through the mountain where the enemy was hiding and even tearing apart the F9 class ship that should have been highly durable. The leader of the Nashi race group was forced to store his 2 subordinates in a dimensional ring and withstand the explosion alone. Although he survived, he immediately recognized this as a combined attack by insect troops and retaliated by firing thousands of energy beams with immortal-level power in all directions. However, Luo Feng had anticipated this and immediately stored all the insect troops in his internal world after the attack was launched, rendering the enemy's counterattack useless as it slammed into empty mountains. Without wasting any time, Luo Feng immediately transformed into the golden-horned behemoth and flapped Shiwu's wings, turning into a silver lightning bolt that shot towards the target to deliver the final blow. Meanwhile, the desperate leader of the Nashi race called back his two subordinates and ordered them to split up while releasing their law domains to detect approaching enemies. In desperation, he even tried to disguise himself as a member of the robot race to avoid the battle. But Luo Feng, who already knew his true identity, immediately attacked while shouting that the enemy from the demon race was the one he must eliminate. In the end, the battle was inevitable. The golden-horned behemoth immediately launched its deadly attack, flapping its silver wings that shimmered like giant blades, leaving behind terrifying trails of light that ripped through space. However, the young enemy leader did not stand idly by. His eyes, red like sparkling gems, glowed as he unleashed a black whip stretching dozens of kilometers long, capable of manipulating the flow of time itself, slowing the golden-horned behemoth's movements. Though the black whip was severed by the silver wings, its time-manipulating effect still affected the golden-horned behemoth's speed. The leader of the Nashi race arrogantly suggested that the Silver Wing King retreat, as warriors who mastered the laws of time were extremely difficult to kill and would only waste time. However, his arrogance quickly vanished when his deadly soul attack was perfectly blocked by the silver armor of the beast, which neutralized 99% of the soul attack, combined with the defensive technique Beast Howl that destroyed the remaining attack. Although the black whip was severed by the silver wings, its time manipulation effect still affected the speed of the golden-horned behemoth. The leader of the Nashi race arrogantly suggested that the Silver Wing King retreat, as the warriors who mastered the law of time were extremely difficult to kill and would be a waste of time. However, his arrogance quickly vanished when his deadly soul attack was perfectly blocked by the beast's silver armor, which was able to neutralize 99% of soul attacks, coupled with the Beast Howl defense technique that destroyed the rest of his attack. The instant death of his subordinates made the leader of the Nashi race realize that he was facing a peak Immortal. In panic, he decided to flee by first using his ultimate technique, Time Stop, which emitted a red light from his eyes and froze the golden-horned behemoth within a 100-kilometer radius. While the beast's body couldn't move at all in the darkness and absolute silence, its consciousness remained active. However, the golden-horned behemoth's power was no joke. With a mad roar from within the inner world and the terrifying vibrations of Shu Wu's wings, Luo Feng managed to break the time-binding constraints trapping him. When his hearing returned to normal and he saw the mountains collapsed from the previous attack, he realized that the leader of the Nashi race had fled 1,000,000 kilometers away. But thanks to the treasure carried by the enemy, which constantly called out to Luo Feng, there was no place for his enemy to hide. Realizing that the leader of the Nashi race had fled at a speed approaching the speed of light, the maximum speed achievable on the main continent of Yanji, Luo Feng, in his golden-horned behemoth form, immediately gave chase. However, since both parties had the same maximum speed and the enemy was flying in a straight line, it was impossible to catch up directly. Luo Feng then devised a brilliant strategy by keeping his large scanner active, making the enemy believe he was still relying on technology to track him, when in reality, he could sense the location of the treasure through the resonant calls of every cell in his body. The dramatic chase lasted 6 hours, with two figures like falling stars racing along the same path. The leader of the Nashi race group finally laughed maniacally when he realized the large scanner signal had disappeared, assuming the Silver Wing King had surrendered. Over the next 9 days, he continued to change direction randomly before finally hiding in the depths of a freezing river whose coldness could freeze even a domain lord. He felt safe with this complicated escape strategy, unaware that Luo Feng could still track him easily. Meanwhile, Luo Feng sat leisurely in his ship's control room sipping tea, analyzing his enemy's strength. He realized that the Nashi race's time-stop ability was a divine technique related to the laws of time, which was even more powerful than teleportation. Although it only took 0.1 seconds for an enemy to stop time, that brief moment was sufficient for them to launch several deadly attacks. Fortunately, the enemy believed he was at the Immortal King level and chose to flee, thinking they couldn't harm Luo Feng. Knowing that a normal battle wouldn't stand a chance against the enemy's time-manipulating abilities, Luo Feng decided to end the fight with a final move. He summoned back the millions of tiger-armored insect troops along with Alina's mother nest, positioning himself 600,000 kilometers away from the enemy, a safe distance from the enemy's 20-kilometer mini-scanner detection range. With the precise coordinates from the treasure call, he ordered a combined attack that destroyed the river rock layer and the enemy's F9 ship. Although the leader of the Nashi race group managed to survive thanks to the G-class cabin that was able to absorb 90% of the attack, his immortal body was still 3% destroyed, and he realized how dangerous the situation was. As the flow of spatial particles raged around him due to the cabin's destruction, he saw the terrifying figure of the golden-horned behemoth rushing in through the debris, ready to deliver the final blow in this battle that had dragged on far too long. The leader of the Nashi race group quickly exited the destroyed cabin, realizing that hiding inside was tantamount to suicide, as it would render him completely immobile. He knew that the Silver Wing King had undoubtedly found a way to counter his time-stopping ability, as a peak immortal king would never waste time without a guarantee of victory. In a battlefield filled with fragments of space flowing like colliding asteroids, the Silver Wing King moved easily thanks to Shiwu's wings that controlled space energy, while the leader of the Nashi race group struggled to catch up. When the leader of the Nashi race group tried to use his time-stop ability, Golden-Horned Behemoth cleverly kept moving and dodging, making the target area uncertain. Though the Black Whip managed to wrap around one wing and slow its movement, Shiwu's wings, true treasures, could not be destroyed even by a warrior at the Universe Master level. As the distance closed, the Nashi race group leader attempted time-stop again, but Luo Feng had already prepared his ultimate weapon. Shortly after, a terrifying red pyramid-shaped crystal appeared between the two remaining enemies, and it was a Fire God Origin crystal, equivalent to the power of a peak-tier immortal king, set to explode in self-destruction. The leader of the Nashi race was shocked, not out of fear of death, but because he couldn't believe the Silver Wing King would sacrifice such a valuable treasure worth 800 million points just to kill a low-level immortal king. In desperation, he destroyed the communication item to send the enemy's coordinates to the entire demon race, simultaneously shattering the item that allowed his master in the distant universe to teleport. Unfortunately, the rules of the extraterritorial battlefield prohibited warriors at the Universe Venerable level from intervening. The colossal explosion of the Fire God Origin crystal obliterated an area spanning tens of thousands of kilometers, transforming spatial fragments into indestructible particles. The leader of the Nashi race, despite being protected by a G-class cabin and his living, flower-like Yan form, was instantly annihilated along with all his soul slaves, who died when their master was killed. Meanwhile, Luo Feng, in his golden-horned behemoth form, survived thanks to 3 layers of defense, Shiwu's wings and soldier armor that dampened the explosion. After the explosion subsided, Luo Feng, who was almost unharmed, surveyed the battle ruins, the G-class cabin, the Black Whip, and 2 world rings made of G-class metal. What excited him most was the extraordinarily powerful call from one of the world rings, 10,000 times stronger than the call of the general armor fragment. Despite sacrificing a crystal worth 800 million points, Luo Feng was certain that the treasure causing every cell in his body to tremble with joy was well worth the sacrifice. On the edge of the main continent of Yanji, a golden palace stands majestically in the middle of a desert, serving as the headquarters of King Black Jade, an immortal king feared across the continent for his teleportation abilities. When a black-robed warrior from the demon race suddenly appeared above the palace, he offered information on the location of the Silver Wing King for 200 million yuan. Though the price was astronomical for mere coordinates, Qi Wei Ka, from the automaton race of reward seekers who had been targeting Luo Feng, was forced to pay, as this golden opportunity might never come again. Meanwhile, Luo Feng, who had just won a fierce battle, immediately realized that the leader of the Nashi race must have sent a message before dying. He quickly gathered all the loot, including 2 world rings emitting an extraordinarily strong call, then shifted from his golden-horned behemoth form back to his human body to avoid detection. The beast's body was too large to hide from the 20-kilometer diameter mini-scanner, so human form was more strategic for escape. Within seconds of Luo Feng leaving the location, 3 deadly enemies teleported directly to the riverbed: Qi Wei Ka, King Black Jade, and King Black Grace. They immediately activated their large scanners to search for traces of the Silver Wing King, but found nothing because Luo Feng had already deactivated his large scanner and was flying very slowly to avoid suspicion. Black Grace explained that even though only 30 seconds had passed, the Silver Wing King might already have a much more advanced mini-scanner than before. Realizing the enemy's strategy, King Black Jade decided to use his ultimate weapon, the 9 Absolute God Country. a system of 6 ships that created a hexagonal prison with a diameter of 100 million kilometers. This mysterious technology, the result of years of research by the universe venerables of the robot race, was capable of scanning vast areas with a domain stronger than Thunderhell. Not only that, this technology can fire countless laser beams that penetrate mountains, land, and rivers tens of millions of kilometers deep. Meanwhile, Luo Feng, who was flying slowly to avoid detection, finally gets trapped within the range of this super-advanced scanner, forcing him to face the greatest challenge of his life. Then, 6 pyramid-shaped ships floated in the sky, forming a terrifying formation that fired countless beams of light, creating the hexagonal prison, a white, mist-filled space spanning 100 million kilometers that severed all connections with the outside world. The advanced technology created by the robot race of Universe Venerable was capable of detecting even the weakest creatures or weapons, making Chi Ka certain that the Silver Wing King would not be able to escape this perfect trap. In an exhaustive search operation that consumed an enormous amount of energy, the system successfully detected 82 suspicious objects scattered throughout the area. Siwei Ka and Black Jade teleported quickly to inspect each target: 62 shipwrecks, 9 weapon fragments, 10 pieces of immortal corpses, and 1 ancient world ring. Upon finding the ancient world ring, Siwei Ka immediately destroyed it in hopes of finding the Silver Wing King inside. But it turned out to be a 100-million-year-old ring from a past battle. The failure of the search frustrated Siwei Ka, while Black Jade analyzed 3 possibilities. First, the enemy was hiding deep within a spatial fissure, 1% chance. Second, they were still inside the prison, but undetected due to advanced technology, 20% chance. Third, they had already escaped, highest probability. Black Jade suspected that the Silver Wing King might have mastered teleportation, or received teleportation assistance from a human base as before. Unwilling to accept reality, Chi Ka frantically ordered the hexagonal prison to use maximum energy to destroy the entire 100 million kilometer area, reducing rivers, mountains, and land to total destruction with an attack equivalent to the self-destruction of a peak immortal king. Meanwhile, hidden among the ruins as an ordinary rock, Luo Feng used the Moshe clan's perfect body transformation ability to disguise himself, shocked by the wasteful use of tens of millions of Hunyuan energy just to ensure his death. Elsewhere, in a magnificent virtual universe with 108 ancient thrones, galactic leaders gathered to discuss the shocking news. The world master of the human race, Luo Feng, had successfully killed a low-tier immortal king. Though many were skeptical, as the world master's power should not have been enough to defeat an immortal-level warrior, the contribution points awarded proved his achievement. According to the rules of the Hongmen Alliance organization, anyone who can kill a low-level immortal king, whether through treasure or any method, is entitled to join the galaxy's elite organization. Hearing this, the galactic leaders continued to debate Luo Feng's admission into the Hongmen Alliance. Although there were doubts that it might have been the real Luo Feng who killed the low-level immortal king, they agreed that anyone capable of such an achievement, whether through wealth or special techniques, was worthy of joining this elite organization. When they requested the recording as evidence, it was revealed that the level of authority required to view the video had been set extremely high by the Chaos City Lord, meaning fewer than 3 people in the Alliance could access it. Realizing that no one could oppose the decision of the Chaos City Lord, who ranked among the top 3 in the human race, the Universe Venerables finally agreed to accept Luo Feng without viewing the recording. They agreed to form a team to officially invite Luo Feng into the Hongmen Alliance, acknowledging the prowess he had demonstrated in the extraterritorial battlefield. Meanwhile, on the main continent of Yanji, the brutal attack of the hexagonal prison continued with lasers 10 times more powerful than a peak world master, destroying everything in the area. When one of the laser beams struck the rock where Luo Feng was hiding using his Moshe transformation, his body was torn into 7 fragments, some of which turned into dust. Siwei Ka, growing increasingly desperate, even summoned the Death Spirit King, a terrifying peak immortal king with thousands of eyes and deadly soul power. Just as the situation reached its peak of despair, ripples in space signaled the arrival of teleportation. King Star Fantasy of the human race appeared to save Luo Feng, but Black Grace immediately activated a 30 million kilometer wide spatial lockdown, preventing further teleportation. Transforming into a golden-horned behemoth, Luo Feng grasped Star Fantasy and flew at an astonishing speed, although he was slowed by countless laser beams from the hexagonal prison. The battle continues into a spatial fissure where the four enemies continue to pursue. However, this is where the miracle occurs. Shi Wu's wings, imbued with his unique spatial energy, allow Luo Feng to move like a fish in water, completely unaffected by the chaotic spatial currents that severely slow down his pursuers. With a speed so spectacular it even startled the Immortal Warrior Kings on the enemy side, the Silver Wing King flew out of the spatial lockdown area, teleported alongside Star Fantasy, and vanished, leaving Chi Wei Ka howling in frustration as his precious prey escaped for the second time. Well, poor robot. Always being toyed with by Luo Feng, guys. After the failure of the mission to capture Luo Feng, the immortal robot race acknowledged that with the power of the Silver Wing King and his allies, they had no way to kill him. Chi Wei Ka, frustrated, realized that if he had not hesitated to use the 9 absolute god country to its fullest extent, with each seal worth 1 billion yuan, he might have been able to stop the Silver Wing King from escaping. However, his hesitation due to the fantastic cost caused him to miss his chance, especially when an attack by the insect race destroyed one of his ships and threw his entire plan into disarray. Despite acknowledging his failure, Chi Wei Ka still compensated Death Spirit and Black Jade with approximately 200 million yuan each for their efforts. In the virtual world of automatons, Chi Wei Ka then devised a new strategy that would consume nearly all his wealth, a plan with a 99% success rate to kill the Silver Wing King. Though hesitant due to the exorbitant cost, he ultimately decided to proceed, reasoning that even if it failed to defeat his enemy, the weapon would serve as a valuable trump card for the future. Meanwhile, on the endless river of the main continent, Luo Feng thanked King Star Fantasy for saving him. Star Fantasy was impressed by Luo Feng's unique flying ability, which combined teleportation and spatial manipulation, something extremely rare and demonstrating a deep understanding of the laws of the cosmos. Though Luo Feng downplayed his skills, Star Fantasy acknowledged that in terms of momentary speed, the Silver Wing King was the fastest among all the immortal kings he had ever seen. After parting ways with Star Fantasy, Luo Feng seized this opportunity to inspect the treasures obtained from the leader of the Nashi race. What excited him most was the second black metal plate, similar to the one he had found on Earth, but slightly larger. This plate was the source of the powerful call he felt in every cell of his body, even surpassing the soldier armor and ordinary armor, as it was the root of the entire legacy of the Nameless Manual. When Luo Feng penetrated the metal plate with his soul energy, he once again experienced an illusion and received 53,103 words of Mother's Light, containing the 2nd and 5th volumes of the same manual as the metal fragment from Shu Xin, which contained the 1st volume. With this, out of the 9 total volumes, he now possessed the 1st, 2nd, and 5th volumes. Not only that, but the 9 Calamities Secret Tome technique also offered the possibility of breaking through genetic limitations that Luo Feng had never heard of in any other manual. Though it would take a long time to train the 2nd volume like his previous experience, Luo Feng felt this was a true windfall that would make his earth body and golden-horned behemoth far stronger. After searching through all the belongings left behind by the leader of the Na Shu race group in an area spanning 1,000 kilometers, Luo Feng discovered several valuable items that immediately caught his attention. The most striking was the 1,000-year-long light beam measuring 29 centimeters, a rare material typically formed within black holes or secret regions, worth at least 3 billion points in treasure and used to create time-based weapons. Together with other rare materials such as green-white dew and 360 light beads, the total value of these materials reached about 8 billion points, indicating that the leader of the Nashi race was planning to create a terrifying time weapon. However, the most shocking discovery was a round crystal ball the size of a soccer ball that looked ordinary but emitted an extraordinary mysterious energy when touched. This crystal glowed with all kinds of colors while creating discomfort in space and time, immediately making Luo Feng realize that this was the true treasure of the Nasha race leader and the source of his amazing time-stop ability. When mysterious words appeared on the surface of the crystal, the same language as the inheritance he had received in Devil Mountain, Luo Feng was able to understand their meaning immediately. It turned out to be the Dreamlight God's Heritage Crystal, which could only be accepted by a World Master Warrior, This heritage allowed one to learn the techniques of the Dreamlight God, and if mastered perfectly, one could become a divine messenger capable of merging with the crystal to become a candidate for the new Dreamlight God. What made this inheritance extremely rare was the fact that in the vast universe, there would only be one Dreamlight God, and this inheritance only occurred once every 10,081 eras. The crystal Luo Feng had found had been used 82 eras ago, meaning it would require another 9,999 eras, approximately 100 million years, for the next inheritance. Despite realizing the extraordinary value of this treasure, Luo Feng knew he couldn't use it because he was focused on the path of the Beast God, which combined gold and space, not the laws of time. Deciding to consult his master, Luo Feng went to the palace of the Chaos City Lord at the highest peak of the Thunder Island. Upon hearing about the Dreamlight God's inheritance crystal, the city leader was not surprised and explained that the Hongmen Alliance had collected a total of over 8,000 inheritance crystals, but they only possessed one specifically for the Dreamlight God, which proved how rare and valuable Luo Feng's discovery was. So what happens next? Alright, thank you for watching until the end, and don't forget to support this channel with likes, subscribe, and comments. That's all from me. Bye.